Hi, and welcome to Focus on UTV. I'm Madeline Coburn, your host. I'm sitting here today with Anthony McDonald. He is the author of Risen from Jamestown to the White House. How you doing today, Anthony?
I'm great, and yourself?
I'm fine. Thank you for coming today.
No, thank you for having me on the show with you today.
Great. Today we want to talk about some things that would reference fatherhood. And when I met you, I knew it was something about you outside of being a father. But because of the writings of your book here, it depicts a lot of our history as Black African-American males and females. And today I want to go through a series of questions to let our audience viewers know really who Anthony McDonald is. Is that okay with you today?
That's wonderful. Thank you.
But actually, what I want to start off with your book, can you just tell me what was the purpose and behind writing this great book that you've written?
Oh, wow. Good question. Well, I wrote the book Risen from Jamestown to the White House because of my son, Anthony Jr. He was in preschool at the moment, and he was starting to learn about Black history. And I always told myself I didn't want him to be misguided and miseducated as I was and so many of my peers when it came to our own history. So once he started learning about Dr. King in the month of February at his preschool, then I took the liberty to take him down to Atlanta, Georgia, so that he can learn firsthand from this King Center, the memorial site. I took him down there, and he was very intrigued with all the pictures that was on the wall. So on our drive home, he was like, "Daddy, can you turn off the radio so we could talk?" And I knew I was in trouble at that moment because he could be very long-winded. So he asked me a number of questions about the civil rights era as well as the slavery era. And at this time, he was only 5 years old, but he was very inquisitive and wanted to know why. Why did we get treated like this? What did we do wrong? So he had a series of questions. From that point on, we got home back to St. Louis, and he would often sit on my lap and turn off the television and say, "Daddy, can you tell me about more important Black people I should know about in our history?" So his inquisitive nature caused me to study and research various African Americans that I could teach him about, so he can know that we wasn't just slaves and we wasn't just hopeless and helpless people. They'll encourage him and build him up as an African American boy. So once I started teaching him and becoming educated myself on our own history, I was very intrigued, and I felt that there was a severe need for our children to understand who we are as African Americans, to know that we was not just helpless and hopeless slaves, that we were something far different than what the history books depict us as. We was very courageous. We was fighters. We was very intelligent, and we was a very tenacious people. And that's the reason why I wrote the book Risen.
The question I would like to really understand, just from a female perspective as an African-American woman, why is it so prevalent today that the absenteeism of fathers, African-American males, are absent in the homes?
That's a very good question. If we look at it from a historical viewpoint, we'll understand it more clearer. Historically, when we were brought here as slaves in the year 1619, it was very important for the Black male image to be destroyed in order for the slave trade to work in the manner that it worked. The reason why it was so important is because naturally the man role is to protect his family. Our role is to protect our family, give the family direction, give the family that esteem that a family needs. So if you destroy that image, it's just like the old biblical saying, if you take off the head, you kill the body. So if you destroy the man image, then you're taking off the head of the family. So now the rest of the family, just pretty much dwindle away naturally. So you see a lot of different things that come out of that. You see that our young males, they're confused with their sexuality. You see that there's a lot of abuse between the male and female relationship. There's a lot of brokenness that comes out of a Black male not being in the home. So that was a plan. That was something that was designed by plan. This isn't something that just happened in the year 2010. It didn't just happen in 1990. This is something that happened in the 1600s. In which the slave masters, they separated the Black male from his family. It was important to keep them separated because the natural tendency of the man is to protect his family, and they needed the woman for the reproduction system so that they could have good, strong economics. So that that woman could breed more children, so that they could feed the economy more. So they used the Black male at that particular time of our history just to breed, for breeding purposes. So they would pick a nice stud of a man man, and then they would find young females for him to reproduce with. So that black male might have 20 children, 30 children, and he never would see those children because those children would be sent off and sold to other plantations, and that was his only job on that particular plantation, was for the reproduction system. So historically, we have always been separated from our family, and that's been by design. The woman was conditioned to teach her boys to be dependent and mentally weak and physically strong. And we see that every day. We see our black men living with their mom. They're more dependent on their women. They're looking for a woman to take care of them. So this is history. This is historic in nature. And then her psychological frozen state, she would teach her daughter to be independent like her. So that's why we hear the word independent, strong black woman. And we pride ourselves on that. However, that's not the way of nature and the way of God. We are put here to be dependent on one another. So if a male and a female is in a relationship and that woman is independent and that man is dependent, for one, that's counter nature, and for two, that's not a healthy relationship. So it takes both people in a relationship to depend on one another. Dependence just means to rely on one another. So it takes both people in the relationship to have a certain dependence on one another. But if one person in the relationship is independent, that means that they're not a part of that relationship. So therefore, we look at the black male part, without examining the black female part. We have to look at both of those parts. And it's not about pointing fingers, but it's about understanding the role and establishing something so we can build on for the future. So we can't teach our daughters no longer to be this independent woman, independent of a man, because that's not what God intended. That's not what nature intended. We have to teach her that she should be dependent, meaning that she have to rely on a man as well as a man rely on her, but in a way that's pleasing to God. That man has to be truly a man, and we have to teach him how to be a man at his youth. So this is not a new trend. So the black men didn't just haven't just become absent from the home. We've been absent from the home since our arrival here in the Americas, and that was by design. So if you take 300 years of bad training and teachings and it's become generational, then that's going to be a continuous occurrence.
How can you teach a man to be a man when the man was never taught to be a man because there was no father in his home?
Once again, we have to be the shining examples. We must be examples. One of the things that I believe that is going to be detrimental into us reversing ourselves as nature sees us right now is we have to take control of the media. Yes. The media is very intelligent force. It's a very intelligent force. It's still the superior, inferior motive behind the images that you see of the black male. I was thinking about television and radio. I'm trying to fathom in my mind what was positive, as far as when I see the African American image. I really can't sit up here and tell you that I can name 5 positive black shows, and I'm just being honest with you, and that's a problem. When I turn on the television, I see people with the same skin complexion as us. I see negativity, and that's by design. Yes, it is. Now, when I go out into the real world and I go to corporate America and I go to different businesses and when I'm on different speaking circuits, I see a lot of positive black men and black women. I see black women that are attorneys, that are doctors, that are scientists. I see black men that are the same. Why don't we see this in the media? So we have to take control of the media as it is now. We have to lobby and picket against these radio stations that are playing this music to our babies, so that they're destroying the image even further. Now it's becoming the norm, and it's becoming cool to have babies out of wedlock. So now it was a time where young women used to pride themselves on waiting to get married, but we have every song about baby mamas and single women that make these women be more proud to have a baby outside of wedlock than inside of wedlock, because you get no accolades for having the children inside of wedlock. We have to lash out against those things that are not pure and not natural, that are continuously hurting us. When we turn on the radio and we hear about our black young males promoting violence, that's advocating for us to be violent. We have to strike out against that. Otherwise, we're doing our children such a disservice, and then our children are going to grow up and think that these things are normal, these things are cool. If you go to Asia, the Asian people that haven't been to America, they think that every black man is a baby daddy or every black woman is a baby mama. They don't know that black people in America are married and that are business owners and are prosperous. So we have the power, and we have to go against these radio stations and go against these television stations and have them stop playing these broken images of our children. I'm trying to restrain myself, so we have to take control of what's being displayed of us, by the media. So shows like this show is a very important show because we're not on here coonery buffoonery. So we have to show more intelligent black people so that these kids, these babies, can see that.
With all that you've accomplished thus far, I understand that there may have been some things and errors in your past that you found yourself having to overcome because of maybe the absence of that role model, so to speak, growing up in a community with gang violence and things of that nature. Would you care to speak about that today, just of some of the things that you found yourself having to combat against growing up as a young African-American male in your community?
Yes, I grew up in a broken home like many of my peers. I had a mom and dad in the home. My father was an alcoholic, so I had that passive father, or that broken father. And my mom was on welfare. So we grew up in the depths of poverty. We grew up in North St. Louis. It was a very, very crime-ridden area. I lived in one of the roughest areas in St. Louis. I was a straight A student, and I loved math. I was very calculative. At the age of 5, I recall being in my living room in our apartment, and I knew that something was wrong. And I knew that I didn't want to live in the ghetto no more. That was all that was in my mind at the age of 5. So being very calculative, I used to look across the street, and I used to see this drug dealer. He was a big drug dealer, and he had all the cars, the women, the money. And I used to admire him. He was the ideal of who I wanted to be as a man. I thought that he was a man because he had those material things. The women was gravitating toward him. Everyone in the community looked up to him and depended on him. So he was a hero in our neighborhood. I made a lot of wrong turns in my life. I started hanging out with the neighborhood gang, and then from that point, in what's important about that, the way I started hanging out with them, growing up in my home, I never heard the word "I love you." From the time I was a child to my teens, till I got out of the house, I never heard from my mom or father the words "I love you." Every child needs to hear that because, if not, you're going to hear it from somewhere. So at this time, one of the leaders of one of the local gang said, "Man, cuz I got all love for you." He didn't say "I love you," but it felt like that. So now I felt someone loved me. I felt that I was a part of something. So now I had a new family. So now these are people that will kill for you. They'll protect you. What you think a father would do. So that's why our boys join gangs, because that protective tendency, that tendency of providing, the gang provides you with certain things. So now I started hanging out with the local gang. And then this led me into getting into the drug gang. So I went from a little kid that was peddling a couple rocks on the block to moving 20 kilos a week every single week of my life. So I'm traveling around the world. I'm having the prettiest women at this time, the finest cars, the finest living quarters. So this led me into getting shot, getting robbed.